But we start this hour with the developing news coming out of Gaza, out of the Middle East.
That's right. There is a Fox News alert. Israel carrying out retaliatory strikes in Gaza after Hamas violated the new ceasefire deal by attacking Israeli soldiers on the Strip.
Chief Foreign Correspondent Trey Yingst joins us live in Tel Aviv with the latest. Hey, Trey.
Yeah, hey guys, good morning. Israel says Hamas has violated the ceasefire agreement by launching a rocket-propelled grenade and sniper attacks against Israeli forces within the enclave. The Israelis have already responded, striking targets in the southern and northern parts of Gaza. And we do have some new information for you. The office of the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu releasing a statement just minutes ago saying there was a security consultation held after that violation with the top security echelon here in Israel and the country's defense minister, and that the prime minister has instructed the military to act forcefully against terror targets inside the Gaza Strip. We're getting a similar statement from the Israeli military saying the IDF will respond firmly. So we can expect more Israeli strikes throughout Gaza later today as the Israelis try to set a new precedent with Hamas that these attacks will not be tolerated within the Gaza Strip. Remember, the Israelis still control around 53% of Gaza as part of the phase one of President Trump's peace plan in the Middle East. That is expected to change if the plan moves forward. But the Israelis are committed, they say, to striking Hamas if there are violations to the agreement. Already we've heard from top Israeli ministers, including Itamar Ben-Gvir and Bezalel Smotrich. They are encouraging the prime minister to return to war. We should be very clear here, though. Just because Hamas has violated the ceasefire agreement doesn't mean the deal is over. These ceasefires are never pretty, and there are often violations to them, but we understand that it still remains in place. And Hamas is releasing a statement of their own saying they weren't aware of any sort of movement in the southern part of Gaza, but the Israelis, like we said, are expected to respond later today. Hamas still must release the bodies of 16 hostages as phase one remains underway. Overnight, 2 additional remains were released by the terror organization. As this moves forward, though, there are questions about how negotiators are going to be able to hold together this agreement. Remember, the president, as part of this larger plan, is still calling on Hamas to lay down their weapons, to disarm and leave the Gaza Strip, or to commit to peace. With the violation today, certainly this raises tension across the Middle East, but it does not mean that the deal is over. The latest information that we have this morning, this violation took place according to the Israeli military. And again, we can expect more Israeli response later today, likely in the form of airstrikes targeting Hamas inside the Gaza Strip. Guys?
And so, Trey, as you mentioned earlier, talking with us, you're not surprised. We spoke to a IDF soldier in the last hour who served over in Gaza since October 7th. He's not surprised. But is it different now as they try and hold this ceasefire together that you have Arab countries buying into this plan?
Absolutely. Remember, this was a comprehensive peace plan that was presented by President Trump. It built in contingencies for these type of events. And that is part of the reason that within the deal, you have an international stabilization force that ultimately will enter Gaza, and it will have oversight from U.S. Central Command to keep the peace, to ensure that Hamas is not violating the ceasefire agreement. And there are efforts underway as we speak to get that force together and ultimately have them enter the Gaza Strip. It will be Muslim-majority countries, Arab neighbors of Israel, that will actually be participating. There will be no U.S. boots on the ground. But this is a very important part of the agreement because it will help to stabilize the situation inside Gaza. Oftentimes, we see these violations take place, but they don't actually collapse the agreement. There will be a bit of back and forth that takes place, and things will move forward as planned. And that is what we can expect here out of what's taking place today, even if future Israeli strikes take place in response to this ceasefire violation. Also within the agreement that was presented and accepted by both Israel and Hamas, there will be a technocratic government that enters Gaza that will have moderate representation within the enclave to ensure that Hamas is not taking control once again. We saw these very disturbing videos just last week of Hamas executing its opponents inside Gaza. People it claims were stealing aid or working with the Israelis. And that's exactly what the region does not want to see. President Trump warned Hamas against doing this late last week. And he's been very forceful in his statements against the terrorist organization to ensure that they are not raining terror across not just Israeli forces inside Gaza, but their own people. Even last night, the U.S. State Department released a statement saying that there was intelligence that Hamas planned to launch new attacks against Palestinians inside Gaza. And so a lot of instability still within the enclave and questions about how the Israelis are going to respond to this alleged ceasefire violation.
Trey, so it seems to me that it would be really important to get this transition government or this technocratic government in place rather quickly if you don't want these things to happen. Do we have any indication of when this will stand up, this new government?
So we don't know an exact timeline, but we know that regional parties are working on it at this moment. Not only the Qataris, but also the Egyptians. There's involvement of Turkey and other players in the Middle East. We also know that Vice President J.D. Vance and also President Trump's Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff are headed to the region this week, and they will have many of these meetings to move the ball forward. This is going to take some time, and you will see ceasefire violations in the future. It is something that Hamas does, and they've not only done it now, but they did it in the past when there were ceasefire agreements between Israel and Hamas. It doesn't mean that the deal is over, and it doesn't mean that President Trump's peace plan is not working. It will take some time to implement not only the technocratic government of Gaza that will exist in the future, but also this international stabilization force. We don't have an exact timeline, but I can tell you, according to sources that I've talked to both here in the region and in the United States, they are working on it each and every day to get these forces together so that this can move forward and phase 2 can get underway.
Thank you, Trey. We'll be checking back with you all morning.
Thanks, Trey.